Parent Entrepreneur Power, conversation number 223.
Parent Entrepreneur Power.
Wait, what? It's Power!
This is the podcast for parents juggling the tough choices required for success in business while putting family first. Hi, I'm Mary Catherine Johnson, and I share the ups and downs and dirty truths of profits and potty training while chatting with successful parent entrepreneurs from all walks of life. Are you powered up? Hey there, Power Parents. Mary Catherine Johnson here. Welcome to Parent Entrepreneur Power. I cannot believe that we're well into the 200s in our episodes. So we're actually in the third of hundreds, right? Whatever you want to say with that. Is it? We're coming into 300, that block of episodes, and I have just not at all lost interest or lost energy or anything like that. I am so blessed and excited that I get to talk to people like my guest today who have something amazing to say. And this guest, Laura, has something very near and dear to my heart that if you know anything about my story, you'll know it's going to resonate with me, and it probably will with you. So without keep continuing in my little monologue here, let me introduce you to Laura S. Shortridge, and she is the author of Unipreneur, and you'll know what that is in just a second. Hey there, Laura, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Mary.
Yay. Yay. Fantastic is wonderful. I talk to too many people that say, yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm like, what the heck is this all right business? You got to wake up today. You better be fantastic.
Exactly.
All right. So we start out the same with everyone. Tell us your once upon a time story. Give us an idea how you got into this whole parenting and entrepreneur thing.
Well, let me start off by saying I ended up with 6 kids. So, and we got married when I was 19 and he was 23, and actually went into labor on our first anniversary. So that tells you.
Well.
Yeah, just spent the evening timing contractions. But anyway, the first really part I had with being an entrepreneur started actually when I had 2 kids, and a friend of me asked if I would watch their newborn. She was an anesthesiologist, and her hours were kind of weird. And so she asked if I'd watch her little girl while her husband, anytime when her husband couldn't watch. And so I ended up doing that, part-time. I would go into her home and do light housekeeping and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And that grew into, we kept having kids. And so that grew into, by the time she had, her, I had 2 kids, or she had 2 kids, and I had 3. By that time we had built our own house. And so she then brought her children to me. Mm-hmm. So I was watching children. It was back in the day, it was 80s. So, there weren't licensing and that type of stuff. It was just babysitting,
right?
But it was actually a little business, and, kept the month not lasting more than the, paychecks for my husband. But anyway, so I did this up until right before our 4th child was born. And on top of that, there was also another family with 4 children that I would babysit occasionally. And I wanted to share with you, if you don't mind, the last week of work it wasn't work, but the last week of having those children, in my home. Mm-hmm. First there was one day in that last week that I happened to have all 10 of those children. I had my children and the ones that I always watched, plus I had the 4 of the other woman, it just happened, they all happened to be there in one day. 8 months pregnant, remember, 8 months pregnant. So here I am, it was in Texas, and it was in May, and so, or late April, and it was nice outside, so we had a long picnic table that my husband had made in a fenced-in little backyard. And I had the kids out there, and I had made hot dogs and macaroni and cheese. And I turned my back, and all of a sudden I turned around, and the neighbor's beagle had dug under the fence and was up on the top of the table eating all their food, just running. It was like something out of a movie.
Chaos.
Chaos. Yes. And some of the kids were screaming, and some thought that was really cool. And I was just like, I have to make something else to eat, of course. And I couldn't even reach the dog. I was so pregnant. I had to bend over with one. I mean, I had to drag it, I'm poor little dog.
To the end of the table. Yeah.
Yeah, and get it out of the yard and figure out where it came in. Anyway, it was like, oh, I'm so glad this is my last week. And then the very last day, I only had my 3 and her, so I only had 6 children, but remember, 8 months pregnant. And it was just one of those days where everything was going wrong. And I hear this, Mom, the toilet won't work. I went in, one of the kids, I don't know, still don't know who did it, but they stuck a carrot down the toilet. So here I am reaching, I mean, you can't get out with a plunger. I could see the edge of it. And I was hoping, but I had to reach my hand in and grab that. And I was cleaning up the mess, and I was, starting to tear up at that time. And washing my hands, and I hear this pop, pop, pop. I thought, oh my goodness, what is this? So I go into the kitchen, and there the 2 3-year-olds, my 3-year-old son and his 3-year-old companion, had gotten a carton of eggs out of the refrigerator and were throwing them across, onto the cabinets. Pop, pop. I started bawling. I was just like, oh, I can't do this. What is really interesting is my friend that, had the other children, she had gotten out of work, had the opportunity to get out of work early. And she said she had a feeling she needed to come. And so right when that happened, I was bawling. She came to the door and I said, okay. And she said, for some reason, I knew I needed to come, and, calmed me down and whatever. But from that time, and so everything was fine. And that was my last day.
Wow.
And I decided then, that's something I do not want to do. I love my children and I love children, but I can't do that, especially when I'm very pregnant.
No.
So I never did
that.
But that was my first it really was a business, even though I didn't treat it as such.
Right.
So
wow.
the next thing I did was later on, let's see, I always chose jobs that I could either take my children with me, or when they were older, when some of the kids were older, on jobs where they could watch the younger ones. I never chose to have my kids in daycare. I know people have to do that, and I'm not judging them.
Right.
Just for me, it worked to have that happen. That just, and I was a 4-H educator, and I was also at one point a secretary, but I didn't like having a boss. Frankly, I mean, they were nice people, and I loved my coworkers, but
I get it. Yep.
Exactly. I mean, that's what we are, unipreneurs, right here.
Yes.
So, the next thing I did, I actually, this was quite a few years later, and it was actually when our 5th child was a teenager. And she heard of a multi-level marketing company that she actually was babysitting for a woman who was in this multi-level marketing company. And so my daughter got into it, and she came and told me about it. And I said, well, sure, it's a no-brainer for me. I love the products. I loved the plan. It was under $200 to join. For me, that was perfect. Mm-hmm. And so I started doing it. And but my husband laughed. He thought it was just crazy. And I'm going to interject here the subtitle of my book. The book is Unipreneur: How to Live Your Passion in a House Full of Dream Killers. My husband was a dream killer, even though he didn't mean to be. He didn't realize he was. And so I kept going, though, with my multi-level marketing, and I started doing well. But he would laugh at me and, oh, yeah, that thing. And I'll share briefly a wonderful little change in that. There was one time where he always buys old vehicles, which is fine. I have no problem with that. But he wanted to trade his truck in and get a newer truck. And so I knew he had been looking. And so one Saturday morning I said, do you want me to go with you? He said, sure. So we went, and I could tell he knew which truck. He already knew which one he wanted. He had bid it. The guy knew him and said, oh yeah, your truck's over there. And at the time it was $14,000 for the truck. Wow. And so we sat down, and this was a used one, but we sat down, nice truck for him, just what he wanted. We sat down, and I was listening to him make the financial, paperwork of how to finance it and all this stuff. And so that's when actually it was $17,000, I think, to begin with, but my husband got him down to 14. So as my husband's getting ready to sign, I said, so how about if I pay, how much would it be if I paid cash? And they both just stopped and looked at each other and looked at me, and the salesman says, well, I can knock 1,000 off. And I said, well, how about $10,000 straight? And he goes, oh no, I can't go more than 13,000.
Mhm.
And I said, how about 10,000? And that includes the registration fee and all the incidentals. And he goes, I can't go any lower than 12. And so I closed my book. I said, oh, well, okay. And I closed my checkbook up. And he goes, 11. And I said, nope. And he goes, all right, 10. So, so he went out to get the paperwork. He slid his, card over in front of me so I could write out the check. And he went back to change the paperwork. And my husband waited till the guy left the room, and he looked at me and
Like, are you crazy?
yeah, he goes, he said, do you really have $10,000 in your business account? I said, yes. He goes, well, how much do you have in there? I said, well, enough to get me a car too, if I want to. And he goes, no, really, how much do you have in there? And I said, I'm not going to tell you. He says, why not? And I said, because I'm in a stupid scam business that doesn't work.
Right. So why would you even be interested?
Exactly. So from that point, he is no longer really a dream killer with that. He's a good customer, actually. I will never put him on the business with me, but he is a good customer, and he actually refers people to me. So that's good. And then that, from the proceeds from that, I was able to start investing in real estate. And I have some properties in Texas, which is where I'm from originally. I live in New York State now, but 4 of our kids actually were born in Texas, and 3 of them have moved back. So I have property down there, and one of my children lives in one of them, and instead of paying rent, they manage the properties for me. So that works out fantastic, and my husband's not on that at all. However, here in New York, I also have property here, and I have put my husband, that's a partnership. So we are business partners with that here in New York. So that works great. And so because of all this, I'm now finally doing what I truly love doing, and that's writing. All through the years, I have written things as, short story. I've gotten short stories and magazine articles and that type of thing published over the years. But I always felt like, it was a hobby for one thing, but I always felt like, oh, it's selfish of me to do this because I enjoy it so much. It can't be good.
Yeah. Right. And I can't make a living at it, and I shouldn't really be doing it because it's way too fun.
Yes. And I was stuck in that paradigm of, everybody else comes before me. And I think as women, a lot of time we do that because we're service oriented, and and I don't at all regret being a mother of all those kids and devoting those years to them. I wanted to do that, but at the same
it was a choice.
Yes, but at the same time, there are things I would have done differently to balance business and family. And
Laura, I got to tell you, I knew we were going to get along really well when you just have that tagline to your book, because the power parents who know me and who've been on my site, and they see my husband's the same way. And really, once you show them the money, it's really just a pattern, right? It's just a pattern that they have. I've heard Tony Robbins speak, and it's really, these are focus patterns. Do we focus on what we're missing, or do we focus on what we have, right? Do we focus on the past, the present, or the future? So do we focus on, what do we focus on? And at least mine, I can speak for mine, he focuses on what's missing. And he also focuses on just day to day right now. Not he doesn't have the entrepreneurial bone, right? He doesn't see possibilities. He's very unless it's with his garden, that's a different story. But anyway, with business, it's really like, if it's in the bank account, it's real. Yes. If it's not, it's just you're dreaming. And why are you working towards something that doesn't exist? And that's just his mindset. That's just his pattern. And I let him be and let him do that. But he's not on the bank account. He's not in the business. And all he cares about is when money's in that account, he's a happy guy.
There you go.
Right? And it's not a bad thing. He's not evil. He's not mean. He's not abusing me. He's not limiting me, and none of those things, because I know no one does that but me. Only my own mind limits me. Nothing and no one else.
Absolutely. And I know with my husband at least, and I think a lot of people are like, a lot of dream killers are like this. They don't know they're dream killers. They don't think
That's
of
right.
themselves as that. They're
Mm-mm.
looking at, oh, I don't want you to experience failure, or I don't
Mhm.
want you to,
Get hurt.
get hurt. Yes, all
Get your
those things.
feelings hurt. Feel like a
Yeah.
failure.
Yeah. Or I don't want you, having to be with all those other, dog eat dog businesses or whatever. It's a
Mhm.
protection thing, but it still does squelch your dreams.
Mm-hmm. And it's protecting them more than it's protecting us. I mean,
Yeah.
it really is their own limitations. And
Yes,
you know,
and there's actually another thing. I talk about this a little bit in the book of different reasons why people are dream killers. Another thing is, I think, particularly with the stereotypical male. I don't mean to, be that way, but
right.
with my husband, he fits that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of it was also a fear that I might compete with him.
Completely. Mm-hmm.
He's the breadwinner, and I was fine with that. He's a professor at a college, and he provided well for us, and it gave me the opportunity to be home with the children, which I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there was never quite enough to do anything extra unless
Right.
I did something.
Right.
So I was always the extra,
Right.
But there was that fear, I think, of me outshining him,
Right.
which it's not a competition. And
But it's the way they see life, right?
Yes.
That they are the
Yes.
breadwinners and they are the ones that are going to go out and because it's their role. It's a masculine role in all of history.
Yes.
At least in our history, in the European type history, it is the role of the man to do that. Hunter, gatherer, or hunter and protector and all those things.
Yes.
Our society is very different now, and those requirements are not there anymore. But I respect that, and I'm totally fine with that. However, he also, mine at least, would be more than happy to be home piddling in his garden and have me making the money. He would have no problem with that at all.
Yes, it's interesting how that happens now that we're getting older, and and it's been really nice because now my husband cooks, and he never cooked before. He cooks and he doesn't really clean, but okay, I'll take what I can get. He's a great cook, actually.
I know.
But,
mine is the opposite. He cleans, but he doesn't cook.
Well, but we do trade more roles now, or share more roles, I suppose.
Right.
And it doesn't bother him now that I make money. It's like, oh, this is kind of nice.
Yeah. So let me pick your brain on that then,
Okay.
because I know there are many people in the audience who have these kinds of people in their lives. And really, no one is tying us up, right? And tying us to the table and saying, no, you cannot build this business. If that's the case, please go and find a shelter and leave that relationship. Okay. Let me just say that right there. But really, nobody's doing that. So if my husband comes home and I say to him, oh my gosh, I had 3 calls today, and this was a couple of years ago, I had 3 calls today, and I really think that they're all 3 going to buy. His first reaction would be, yeah, well, when they actually do, let me know.
Yeah.
Right? That kind of thing.
Yes.
So how would you, when that would happen, how would you keep your motivation up and keep going anyway when probably one of the most important people in your life has that kind of attitude?
Well, I actually separated myself in my mind. I actually didn't share those daily things with him about building the business.
After he did that 1 or 2 times, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I just built it without him. So I had to, I just didn't share it. And actually when something good happened, it was, I kind of like in my brain, ooh, chalk one up for Laura.
Yes.
But I think the big thing was I had a mentor in the business. I had, this is in the multi-level marketing. That was a wonderful step for me because I had mentors that showed me what to do and were positive people. The company offered training, free training, that helped my thinking. I started reading, oh man, all the books that I've read in the past 10 years of just amazing things that changed my attitude and made me realize that I have the power to create my life. The circumstances and the conditions, I might not be able to change all my conditions, but I can change who I am in my mind.
That's right.
And I can change the way I look at things and perceive things, and I can change who I am. And as I change and become a better person, it's kind of a ripple effect. It affects the people around me positively, like my husband and some of the children that kind of followed, in the mocking, just to be like dad. And, it rippled. It was a ripple effect. As I changed, everything changed for the better. And another thing, I think there's three things as far as people go. There's mentors, people who have walked the path that I want to walk. They've done what I want to do. And then I have people that are on my team that are basically like me, growing and becoming and constantly becoming better. And then I have people who are just starting on the road and they don't know what to do. And so I can mentor them. And so through all three of those, I think by concentrating on that instead of, oh, what's my husband going to think? Or, oh, what's my husband's going to say?
Yes.
So I built myself and just let him do what he wanted to do.
Yeah. So power parents, please hear that. So I don't know of any successful entrepreneur who was just at home in their business, never, ever, ever being influenced by anyone else. So we can seek out the influence we need. We can seek out the answers that we need. And yes, it would be wonderful if it came from our spouses or our significant others or our family members or really close friends or any of those kinds of things. It would be great. But that for most of us is not the case. For many of us is not the case. So that means we seek it out somewhere else. And we keep those relationships. And I think of them the same way, Laura. I segment them. I have, basically section off my mind for those kinds of things. I don't discuss my goals, my dreams, my business goals and dreams with my husband. I just don't do it. It's just not part of his makeup. And it only makes him uncomfortable.
Exactly.
It makes him very insecure and uncomfortable because he is not this type of person. So there's another person that I've recently met, Alex Charfin, and he talks about the evolutionary hunter, the entrepreneurial hunter, and that's what we are. We're the ones who make people uncomfortable because we think way outside, not just the box, but outside kind of the universe. So
it's like
right?
There is no box.
That's right. And so when we start talking about all these amazing things, we make other people uncomfortable. And that's cool. That doesn't mean it's bad, it's good, it just is different. And so we have to find other people like us that we can talk to. And have as mentors or colleagues or whatever you want to call them. So no one that I know that is successful has just sat in their own house by themselves and never been influenced at all by anyone else. There is always someone you can find that will be able to influence and guide you. And if it's not in your family and it's not your spouse or your significant other, then find someone else who is. And just don't talk about it. We're not lying. We're not keeping secrets. We're not doing any of that. We are adults and we have the power to lead our lives however it is we want. And I'm here to tell you, you can stay married to the person who is a dream killer without knowing it. And you can flourish at the same time as a business owner and an entrepreneur, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just want to mention on the back of my book, I have a disclaimer. First, let me say you made a very important point. If you are in a situation where it's abusive in any way, get out.
Yeah.
I'm not saying stay with somebody
No.
under any circumstances. If you're in danger, get out. But here is my disclaimer. It says, this book is not about how to leave your family or divorce your spouse in order to follow your dream. It is about gaining courage and know-how to pursue your passion while at the same time nurturing deep relationships with your dream killers. So that's what it's all about.
Yes.
Balance. You gotta find that balance.
You do. And, acknowledging and accepting who they are. Yes. And accepting the patterns that they have in their life and the choices that they make and the limitations. We all have limitations. I'm not saying I don't have limitations. I got lots of them, just like anybody else. They're just different from his. And so accept them. If you don't accept that from your significant other, your spouse, how can you expect them to accept you?
Exactly.
You really have to be non-judgmental. And, when I finally realized this and reached this point where I'm not fighting anymore, I'm not fighting this and feeling, oh, he doesn't support me. Why can't I just have a supportive husband? Why can't he support me? Oh my gosh. When I got over that, It's like, woman, slap myself around a bit. You don't need that. Right?
Exactly.
If you died tomorrow, yes, you could still build a business. You would be extremely devastated, but you would find a way to do what you got to do. So you don't need that. Just find it in yourself. And I really do feel I'm a stronger person because of it.
Yes, me too. Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Okay. So tell me how the kids came into this. So you did the MLM and the kids were, so the fifth one was in their teens. So that means, they were pretty much later in the game when you really buckled down and
Yes.
did business stuff.
Yes, and actually, I just to say, I had 5 and 10 years, and then I miscarried twin boys, and they said I couldn't have any more kids. But 7 years later, I had a little girl. So there's 9 years difference between 5 and 6. So she grew up with more of the entrepreneurial stuff, than the older ones did.
Mm-hmm.
And I apologize, but I forgot what your specific question.
Oh, no worries at all. It was more along the lines of, it wasn't really a question. It was just tell me about how the kids fit into that. So you kind of did that. So the older ones were older and they were probably, starting in their own lives, whether they went to college or not, but then you still had a younger one that was there while you were building this whole business thing. So before it was just kind of dabbling and trying to make extra money. But now with the MLM, this was like serious. I'm building a business. This is my job now.
Yes. And I do have some advice for people who have both business and kids.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I mentioned, I was a homeschool mom. I'm not constantly, but a total of 20 years from here and there with all of them. And there was about an 8-year period where I had 5 of them that I home taught. So
oh my gosh.
I stayed home as much as I could. But would you mind if I shared some of the advice?
No, go for it. That's what we're here for.
Well, the number one thing is whatever you do, have fun. I don't care if it's with your kids, with your husband, with your dog, with your business, your associates. Just have fun. If you take it so seriously that the fun is sucked out of your life, it's just awful for your kids. So I did go through a little period where I was so focused that and it was very short. It was like, I remember one of my kids saying, "Mom, you're no fun anymore." I was like, "Oh." And that was not very long, but anyway.
But it's good to get those wake up calls. I mean, our kids are really the best ones to tell us what's going on. Mm-hmm.
So here's my advice for that. And it'll pull together in a minute, but there's 2 things. One is you have your kids do age appropriate chores at home. That's very important. It teaches them responsibility and it builds their self-esteem. And by delegating tasks that anybody can learn to do, it helps you have the time to do the things that only you can do. And the kids feel great when they can help you in that. It really does build their self-esteem. And then the second part of that is introduce your kids to your business. Help them see what you do. As age appropriate. I mean, you obviously don't let a 2-year-old play with your computer when you've got something up on it. Just use common sense there. But, let them help. And, you can even pay them for small projects that they do, or as they get older, like I have, like one of our daughters is a web designer. She's the one that designed my book website. And, you use whatever skills, if they have skills, you can pay them for them. So you reward their efforts, starting when they're little, reward their efforts appropriately. And along with that, as they see what you're doing, if they don't want anything to do with your business, don't make them. Some kids will love to do what you do. Some kids won't. That's okay. Don't make them, because I think I have seen that happen where somebody makes them work in the family business and then they resent it. They want to just move far away when they turn 18.
That's right. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's the best way to get rid of them really quick.
Yeah. And so whatever their task is that you give them, help them learn it. And if it's not something they want to keep doing, then don't have them do it. Even with chores, it's that way. I found with my 6 kids, let me give an example. My 3rd son, we had this big house, it's an 18-room house, old farmhouse. Huge. Wow. Everybody had their own room plus a guest bedroom. But we have this long, beautiful wooden stairway. Well, our 3rd son, for some reason, he liked the job of cleaning those stairs. He would, once a week he'd go and because dust and cat hair and everything collects on those all the time. He would, every step, he would go up and clean those steps. And he did that for years. But that's what he liked to do. And it was like, okay, go for it.
You bet, man.
But because different people like different things.
Yes.
And in your business, this goes with family and with others, but you delegate what you aren't good at or what you don't like doing. And if it isn't a good fit for a family member to do those things, then hire it out. Don't get stuck doing something that you absolutely hate because it affects your attitude and your demeanor, and therefore affects your family.
Yeah.
Yeah, big time.
Yep.
Let's see. Oh, and the other thing, as you're with your business, don't burden your kids with negative stuff about the business. Like if you have a mean customer and you're really upset about it, or a loss, lost some sales or missed opportunity or something like that. Don't lay that on the kids. Make a habit of, if something really, and this is a conscious effort that I had to take. If something, like, I can think of a specific one with a really nasty person
Mm-hmm.
and, I just wanted to yell back at her, but I didn't want to do that in front of the kids. And so I was very polite with the woman and said, we'll talk about this. We'll discuss this later.
Mm-hmm.
And I stepped back and, counted to 10 and kind of set an appointment with myself. Okay, I will get mad in half an hour if it's still worth getting mad about. And, by then I was cooled down. I was like, oh, that was really silly.
Right.
She just got a problem. She must have been having a bad day.
Yeah.
So if you share that negativity with the kids, it's just not a good thing in my view.
Yeah. And I agree. Not negativity, definitely. But I would caution you to power parents to not only show the good.
Oh, that's my next thing.
Yeah, because if you only show the good, then they're going to think that when something not so good happens, that they must be doing it wrong.
Exactly.
Right?
That's actually my next point, is you do share the failures, but you share them and you teach them, you share it with them in a positive way.
In a non-emotional
calmly. And you teach them that, failure isn't fatal. It's just temporary.
Right.
And that failure's feedback. It's okay to fail at things as long as you don't quit. That's what's not good, is if you quit.
Right.
You just find another way, or you just, you learn from it.
Yep.
And so I'm glad you brought that up, because that actually was my second point. But you can share your failures in a positive way.
Yeah. And, my kids, those are great points to bring up, Laura, because my kids, since I've been in online business since 2003, and I started Mommy Loves, which was the first novelty maternity company online. And I was making shirts, and of course the kids were all around me and they knew what I was doing, and they saw, and I started that when my youngest was 18 months and my oldest was almost 4. And so, or a little over 4. And so they have grown up always with mom doing something like this. Mm-hmm. And with Mommy Loves, I would design, I would create, cute little sayings on shirts. And one day my youngest came to me and said, his little 4-year-old, 5-year-old person, and said, can I make a shirt? And I said, yeah, what do you want to make? And so he came up with a saying, Big Brother for Rent.
Oh, I love it.
And he said, and he had it all written out. He said, he'll get candy for you and he'll take the blame if something happens. And so he just started going off on the things that his big brother did. And so, we made a shirt that said that. And he was so proud. He was so excited. That was his shirt. And I told him, I will share when people buy that shirt. I will share some of the money with you so that you'll be able to have some extra money from that and show that people like your shirt. And that just started it. That just started his enthusiasm for doing these kinds of things. And both of my boys, as you know, if you've listened to this podcast, they are both in my business. One of them is a podcast editor. He's the editor that'll listen to this and write our show notes. Hi, Evan. And the other one is an animator. He's a computer animator. And they both understand that they don't have to. They can go get a regular job if they want to, but they don't have to. There are options beyond the standard 9 to 5 that almost everybody has. You don't have to go to college and learn a specific skill and get a job in that skill. You can go to college and learn interesting things and create a business around them. Yes. So it's please, power parents, the more you can expose your kids to this, not require them to do it, not give them a job if they don't want it, but give them opportunities and options and let them know that something else is possible. You are opening up an amazing opportunity and an amazing world for your children that will benefit for generations.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow. Well, I'm really glad that we were able to share some of specifically how to deal with dream killers and specifically how to help your kids be part of your business. How old are your kids now?
Oh, don't ask me. Actually,
Okay, never mind.
our youngest just turned 20 yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Just turned 20 yesterday. So I have no more teenagers. That is
Oh, my
amazing to me.
goodness. Wow.
And, that's one thing is I'm pushing 60 here
Mhm.
and I've learned so much. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now with this book, is because I want other people to not have to go through all that junk I did. I want them to.
Or if they're going through it, to have a guide, to have an understanding by someone that, oh, I get it. I've been there. You're going to be okay.
Yes. Yes. But I also, if I can possibly condense the learning curve, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Because I wish I had known what I know now
I
20
know.
years ago. It would, but that's okay.
Yeah, no, and that's awesome. It's so wonderful that that adults, that usually we don't know, can actually learn from our mistakes, but our children really can't.
Yes.
Right? I mean, I
Well,
wish.
everybody learns their own way. Even like I look at my 6 kids and homeschooling them, each of them learned their own way. Each of them were so individual. They came that way, from
Yep.
day one. They had
Yep.
their little personalities.
Yep.
And so that is part of this. I'm glad you've shared your business with your 2 boys and how they're blossoming. What the piece that they have, the piece of the puzzle that they have is wonderful.
Yeah.
But some of my kids are interested in what I do and some aren't, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, and I think what I'm trying to get my boys to do. So my oldest is gonna he definitely edits the podcast, and he's a voracious reader. I mean, this guy will go through huge books. When he gets stuck on a book, it's just that's all that exists. And he notices when something's not right. He notices when there's a misspelling or grammar's off or something like that, because he reads so much. And so that's really what he's going to probably have a career in. He'll probably be an editor of some kind, probably a freelance editor, something like that, unless one of the publishing houses want to snatch him up. But they can, he works in my business in the sense that he edits my podcast, but he's really on his own path. And he has a business editing other people's podcasts besides mine. So this kid's making a pretty good chunk of change at the age of 19 and going to college. Definitely he's able to sock away some money, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
And the younger one is really just taking the skill that he really enjoys and putting it to work in different parts of my business, but it's not really working for my business or for me in that respect. He's an animator, and he loves to tell a story through animation, through visuals.
Awesome.
And it's just, as long as they know that something else is possible, that's all I care about. They don't have to rely or worry about if they lose their job, they lose their pension, they lose their this, that, and the other thing. They really do have the ability to create their own life, wherever, whenever, however they want.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. Well, Laura, is there so if there's somebody sitting out there and they think, God, I've got a dream killer in here, and it's been so hard to try and start this and so hard to try and grow this thing, and I'm compelled to do it, but it's really frustrating that my other doesn't support me, and they're kind of rocking back and forth on the fence, and they're just like, I really want to do this, but I just don't know if I should or if it's going to work. What advice would you give that person?
Follow your heart. Absolutely follow your heart. And I'm not trying to just pump my book here, but I do have action steps. There's 9 chapters, and at the end of each chapter, there are action steps. Half of them are for your business, but half of them are for building relationships with your dream killer. And so there are specific things. I'd have to go look them up to see what some of the specifics are. Let me look at one of them so I can come up with them. Here's one for relationships. This was on chapter 2 on brightening your attitude. Pick a genre of music that you and your dream killer both enjoy. Find a time to listen to it together, or perhaps go to a concert. If either of you or both play an instrument, make time to share it. or watch a funny movie or a comedy act together. So it just gives different, that's just, one of the little things that
to keep you together, so that this one thing in your relationship doesn't tear you apart.
Yes.
You know, you have other things in common other than this.
Yes. And so that's just like one little tip, but in each chapter, there's several tips of just different ways to promote having a better relationship with your dream killer, not associated with your business.
Right.
Because, and it's just amazing how if you're able to mentally separate the two and have a focus on your business, but also have, your focus on your family, it's so doable when you consciously do it. And
Right.
so my advice would be, just follow your heart. And I think, frankly, your heart's not going to say, oh, I don't like my dream killer, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
I'm going to be mean to my dream killer. That's really not in your heart.
No.
So follow your heart. I guess that would be the
Fantastic. All right. So where can people find you? Where can people find this book? And
my website is www.unipreneurbook.com. Or you can just look up Unipreneur on Amazon and it'll come up.
And it's UNI?
Yes, UNIPRENEUR.
Right.
Unipreneur.
Unipreneurbook.com.
Yes.
Fantastic. Or Amazon, Unipreneur. Fantastic. Laura, thank you so much for spending this time with us. I'm so glad there are others out there besides me that have this other person in their lives that doesn't quite get it. I know there are many of us, and that's okay. Really, it is okay. We can have amazing lives, even with those dream killers, because that's only one part of our life. They definitely thrive in others. All right. Have a fantastic day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary Catherine. Appreciate it.
To get powered up for your day, just go to parentepower.com and listen to the over 200 episodes we have so far with amazing entrepreneurs just like you. It might just help you feel like a grown-up again.